Discover your inner goddess and live up to your highest value and most abundant potential. Welcome to Grateful Goddesses, a podcast that empowers you to unleash your inner goddess and take the leap of faith to live your best life. Your guide, Karen Pulver, joins her fellow goddesses in soulful conversations about gratitude, personal growth, authentic living, and a bevy of topics affecting women today. Let's start the show with your host, Karen Pulver.
Welcome everyone to Grateful Goddesses, and thanks for joining us today. Whether you are watching the YouTube or listening to the podcast or reading the blog, we are so glad that you are here. Ever since I was young and I found out that my astrology sign was a Scorpio, I was so interested. In fact, in 5th grade, I did a project on the astrology signs. And every time I date or have a boyfriend, a longtime boyfriend, I would look up his sign. I am a Scorpio, and I dated a Virgo, a Gemini, a Leo, and I married a Capricorn. I just want to show you, I was going through old scrapbooks, and this is one of them. I have lots of these, which is a little crazy, but this is one. And in this scrapbook, I actually have from my Gemini boyfriend, you and Gemini. And back then I marked this little section, and it said, when a Scorpio girl meets a quick walking and talking Gemini man, he'll be there one moment and gone the next, even when she's arranged a special date. He may even be out with an attractive Aquarian. And wouldn't you know it, guess what? We dated for 2 years and he ended up with the Aquarian while he was dating me. So had I listened to this advice, I probably could have saved some energy and time. But it's with that I'd like to introduce our guest. Michelle Marie is a tarot reader and Western and Vedic astrologer. Her practice is dedicated to helping her clients understand the spiritual lessons and avenues available to them through astrology and tarot. Astrology, tarot, and Vedic studies provide the keys to questions regarding career, relationships, family, finances, and anything else involving your current or past lives. Because she has experienced the healing power of astrology and tarot firsthand, she is dedicated towards sharing these valuable and insightful tools with others. Thank you, and welcome, Michelle Marie, to Grateful Goddesses.
Hi, Karen. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. And now you are a Leo, correct?
I am a Leo. I'm at 9 degrees in Leo.
Which is so interesting. You talked to me and you did this beautiful reading for me. And you talked, for example, 9 degrees. And those types of little extras that you're adding to what I've grown up with is just reading my daily horoscope, finding out compatibility, that type of thing. There's so much more to it. So for someone who's listening that was like me growing up and only knows their sign, knows their spouse or their partner's sign, their children's sign, and what, jives with them, can you explain, if you can, kind of an astrology 101 for us?
Sure. So basically there are 12 houses, and all 12 houses have different meanings. For instance, the first house represents the self. And the 12th house, if you go all the way around, represents the psychic world, the hidden things. So basically you have your houses, you have the degrees, you have your signs, you have your transits, and you have your planets. And there's also asteroids, invisible points, the ecliptic, and nodes. So there's a lot to a person's chart. So when they say, oh, I know my sun sign, and I know my husband's sun sign, and we're not supposed to get along, I ask, oh, what's your moon? What houses are your planets in? Do you know about this or that? And so there's a lot more that goes into astrology than just your sun sign. So you can get really deep into it, especially in Vedic astrology, where there are 16 Varga charts in addition to your Rasi chart.
Okay, so there's so much more to just saying, like, the Gemini. Well, that it's so interesting because he did end up with an Aquarian, which is, I don't know if they get along or Scorpio and Gemini aren't supposed to be together, but.
Well, if you look at sextiles and trines, they tend to be transits that get along. Trine means they're within the same element. So that would be Aquarius, and then Gemini, and then Libra. Those would be your air signs. And if you want to go sextile, air signs get along with fire signs, and fire signs get along with air signs. That they are sextile to each other. Likewise, it's earth and water signs are sextile. So trine is the same element, and sextile is a complementary element.
So for me, the Virgo, Gemini, Leo, or Capricorn, which would be the best sign? Although I already admitted I married a Capricorn. So
Capricorn is excellent for you. Yes,
okay,
Capricorn is excellent.
We won't go down that road of which one did I marry the right sign?
You did.
I did. Obviously, yes, I'm very happy with my very strong-headed, organized Capricorn. Yes, absolutely. I would like to invite our featured goddesses on because they also have many questions about this topic. And in fact, Alicia has had a reading from you as well. So let's invite them in to join us. So welcome, Camille and Alicia. You know, I never asked you guys what your sun sign, your Western sign is. Camille, what are you?
So I'm Capricorn sun, which is funny, and moon in Taurus, I believe. I pulled up my charts so I could tell you exactly everything. Moon in Taurus, ascendant in Aquarius, and Uranus in my ninth house. And all the other stuff, I don't know how far you want to go with it, but I have all of that.
And
But
Alicia,
my husband's Gemini, so that was funny too that you mentioned that.
well, Capricorn and Gemini is different than Scorpio and Gemini, right?
True, but I was like, what are the odds?
And Alicia, what are you?
I'm a Virgo, but you know, it's kind of funny. I really haven't done much of my Western side.
Right, you did your Vedic. Can you explain, because you had that reading with Michelle, can you explain, Michelle, a bit about the Vedic chart, and Alicia, perhaps some aha moments you got from doing that with Michelle?
In Vedic astrology, it's called Jyotish, and it's the science of light. And what that represents is it's our lives, our journey in astrology kind of provides the map. Okay. So the focus is on Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Okay. Those are the life paths that we can take. And each lifetime we have a different path that we take in order to reach realization with the divine source, which is where all of this came from, plus some. So Dharma is like doing the right thing. That's Dhanishta. It's fulfilling spiritual responsibilities. Artha is activity on the material plane, desires on a practical level. It's very goal oriented. It's dedication to a religion would be an example of Artha. Okay. Kama, that's like passion, creativity, children, a pleasure, just enjoying life. And there are some people that are here to do that in their soul's journey. And then there's moksha, and that is the highest degree of perfection. It's spiritual realization. It's the final destination of eternal bliss. And it's devotion to the all-pervading Atman within. And the way that we get to that within each lifetime is through the koshas. And there are 5 koshas. And the 5 koshas in Vedantic philosophy, which includes the incarnating soul. So in maybe Christian texts, it would be called the Holy Spirit that's within. You know, it's probably a different terminology in Kabbalistic literature, but it's basically the spirit of God on the human soul. And we have to kind of chip away at those layers or koshas to reach the divine. And so Vedic philosophy isn't really a religion. It's not based on really Hinduism. It's not Christianity. It's not based on faith. It's just the idea that we're all one spirit and there are many paths to the divine source. So basically the true soul gets hidden by the many issues represented by the planets. That's what the planets represent. And the birth chart and its Vargas. And the Vargas are the 16 charts that I talked about. So you have your first chart, which is your Rasi. And that just kind of gives you, it's like going and looking at the outside of a house that you're about to buy. You get down to the 60th Varga, the D60 chart. That's the 16th chart. You're looking in the junk drawer of that house. So it basically takes it, it's like looking under a microscope and starting off macro and then going micro into a person's life. Kosha means sheath, and the 5 sheaths are known as Panchakosha, one of the 5 coverings of the Atman, or the inner self, which is that Holy Spirit I was talking about. And this kosha system refers to layers of subjective experience that hide the true self, that range from this dense physical body that we're all in to subtle levels of emotions, the mind, and then the spirit. And the divisional charts, or the Vargas, help analyze the kosha and identify any blocks that we have. So the first sheath is the Anamaya, that's the food sheath. That's what we're walking around in, these things, these bodies that we're walking around in. And that's the D1 chart to the D12 chart. And so you can look at that and see, you can look at health, you can look at children, you can look at family, what you're set to do in this particular incarnation, just this life here. And then you go to the Prana Maya, and that is the vital breath sheath. And if you've ever done pranayama exercises, that's a way to break into that sheath and to make yourself aware beyond the physical body sheath. And then there's the Manomaya, which is the mental sheath. And you can break through that through what's called Jnana Yoga. And that's the study of the scriptures, of texts like the Bible, the Gita, etc., trying to connect to the divine in any way you can through mantras, etc. And then there's the Vijnan Maya. And that's the knowledge sheath. That's when you take all of that jnana knowledge and you start to infuse it into your belief system, your soul, into each lifetime as you develop as a soul. And then there's the Ananda Maya, which is the bliss sheath. And if you had that, you wouldn't be here, or you'd be Jesus, or, Krishna, or you'd be spiritually realized. You'd just be walking around in bliss and totally connected to God.
So Alicia, what were some takeaways when you had your reading?
Oh my goodness. I can't even express how absolutely incredible it was. And especially being able to look at it from the connection to past lives, it just went so much deeper. And with this, with my spiritual experience that I had back in 2015, it actually connected so many things. It was just unbelievable. I would recommend anybody to, everybody should get their Vedic done.
So for me, we didn't do that, but you did allude into some past life experiences. So you're saying with Vedic, you go even deeper.
Yes, that is correct. I don't tend to start with a person's Vedic chart. Alicia was a unique case.
Right.
I start with the Western chart to just kind of get them into how astrology works, what the houses are, because I'm not just giving them a description of their chart. I spend a couple of days going through all of my books, looking up celebrities, finding things that I think might help them understand what I'm saying so that they don't get confused, etc. So the Western chart is kind of an introduction. And then I can go deeper and deeper and deeper with the client to the point where we're talking about past lives and karmic blocks and things like that.
I liked that I'm on the same, I guess, what would you say, plane as Demi Moore? Or how would you describe that? She was one of my celebrities that was.
Oh, yeah. I think you had the same Pluto as her and possibly the same Venus, if I can recall that correctly. I've done a few charts in between you and
cool.
now, but.
Yeah. So Demi, if you're out there, we're like sisters here. And Camille, what are some of your questions, or what is your experience with astrology and, Vedic or Western astrology?
I was curious, what made you first get into it? Because I know the first time I was introduced to astrology was just through magazines, looking through in the back and ooh, Capricorns are this and that, and oh, I'm supposed to be like this, so I guess I'll act like this. But I'm wondering what made you go further into it and make it all the things that you do with it now.
Well, it started when I was 9. And I was in a Girl Scout troop, and we were getting our astronomy badge, and they set up all of this equipment out, and to get our badge, we had to identify the different constellations. And while we were doing that, my best friend at the time, an Aquarius, turned to me and said, "Oh, I'm an Aquarius." And I'm like, "What's that mean?" She goes, "That's Delphinus. That's that one up there." And I go, "Okay, well, but what does that mean?" And she told me a little bit about it. She goes, "And my stone is amethyst." And so she just kind of opened my mind to this whole new world. And I started going to the library just as a kid and looking this stuff up because I had a little bit of a problem kind of connecting with people back at that age. We moved a lot. I've moved 33 times in my 37 years of life. So especially, going from school to school to school as a kid, you've got to make friends easily. And that was kind of my icebreaker with people, as I try to guess their sign and ask them questions. And they didn't mind if they were personal because I was telling something about themselves. And, looking back, that's pretty advanced for a kid, but it was just kind of my way through the social anxiety. And I was a big reader. I've always been a big reader. I got in trouble for reading. I read so much. So once I get interested in a subject, I just drill into it until there's nothing to drill into anymore. And I finally found one that if I studied for my entire lifetime, I would be able to drill to the bottom of. So it's perfect for me. It keeps me endlessly curious.
Well, I'm sure because I've brought it up before, but I've moved around a lot as well. So I'm curious, what made you move around so much? Because mine was military and film related. So what's yours?
I grew up in the military, and then I went to college. So that was kind of a transitional experience. And then after that, I struggled a lot with domestic violence. So I would get into relationships with guys that weren't so great because I didn't have the best home environment, and I was projecting in the same way that I did in my home environment that I did with these guys. And I just get kicked out of the house and things like that. And I was homeless for a while. And so I eventually broke that cycle a few years ago. Went to a therapist who helped me immensely. I removed a lot of the, projections and things that I started setting boundaries basically. And those boundaries allowed me to attract better people, healthier people, good people into my life. And it was then that I was really able to bloom and become who I am and start this. So
Thank you so much for sharing that, because I'm sure you weren't planning on going in that direction when this was originally started.
No, but I think
I
it's so
really appreciate
important.
it.
And viewers or listeners, if you are struggling, definitely, Michelle, to encourage people to reach out, right? To speak to people.
yes, a friend of mine took me to the YWCA, and they have volunteers there that will be your court advocate. So that's what saved me, was I had someone to hold my hand in court when no one else would, because I didn't have my family support. They weren't coming to support me. And so that was a huge step for me. So when I encourage, if you're in this situation, to definitely reach out, get out, don't be afraid.
It's a very important message. You did also, just to touch on a little bit of your childhood, you did say that you always had this passion, but you needed to hide it.
Yeah.
So can you talk a bit about that?
Well, I was raised in a Southern military Catholic family with a narcissistic father and I would say he was more psychopathic and my mother was sociopathic. And what my therapist told me was psychopaths are born and sociopaths are made. So my mother catered to him for money. So, so I was raised in this really highly controlled environment that allowed zero freedom of choice. It was all about them. And everything we said and did and had to go through what my father thought, what he felt, what he needed. There was no us. And otherwise we were severely punished. And I simply did everything he told me to do until it almost killed me. And at that point I had to get away. And once I was able to do that, I sought extensive therapy. I calmed my mind and I began studying this on my own again. And astrology actually really helped in my healing process, especially Vedic astrology, because I have gone deep into their charts as well. And, really found that, this is just part of their path and their lessons. And I'm not responsible for their actions. I'm not responsible for their lives. I can move on and heal and, put myself in my own healing first.
Well,
So
we
it was
talked
very
on,
freeing.
thank you for being so vulnerable. I think, again, that having this awareness will help a lot of individuals. I know that when we talked and you talked about karmic contracts that I guess my soul had made, or karmic debts I needed to pay, it made so much, it made so many things more clear to me about relationships that I have with my children, with my husband, with my friends, with my extended family. You had said to me, for example, this scared me at first, I'll be honest. You said that in several past lives, I had been murdered and raped. And it was because and correct me if I'm wrong, if you remember, I was trying to speak my truth to people. I was actually very intuitive and in that realm, trying to help individuals, and I was punished for it. So in this life, I guess I made that karmic contract to suppress and to not allow because of fear of being killed, which is so interesting. Now I'm speaking all of this truth and the grateful goddesses, and I'm really open to it. And I feel so much better and in alignment. And I wonder if that was why, now I don't know what pushed me to do it, but I just felt like I had to. So can we explain a little bit about the karmic contracts and then how people can push beyond it, or what remedies they can do?
Okay. Well, in your Vargas, in your Vedic chart, when Ketu and Rahu, now Ketu is the south node, Rahu is the north node, and your south node, like I said, was in Scorpio, and that's what pointed to all of those past lives. And you have a stellium in Scorpio, so it's even more pronounced because your south node is so integrated with the rest of your planets. Your north node is in Taurus, which is the opposite. Rahu and Ketu, south node and north node, are always 180 degrees apart. And the reason for this is the south node represents your past lives in the Western chart, and your mission in your north node is the mission that you have in this particular incarnation. In your Vedic chart, your south node could represent moksha, which is Ketu. It's a headless being, and Rahu's a head. He's like a genie. He's like why you're here, your attachments. So they have varying meanings. But basically what I found in your chart is that this stellium in Scorpio is something that made you incredibly psychic, incredibly intuitive, very much unafraid to go really deep when it comes to your emotions and to feel the emotions of others. And what your north node is telling you is to create those appropriate boundaries to protect your material sheath, because that's what Taurus is, it's the material. So taking steps to, again, like you said, make your voice heard, create boundaries, and not go and hide. Like I said, the scorpion kind of hides in its little cave, and he comes out and he goes, and he stings you and it goes back. It's, in your case, you weren't even stinging people. So, and then once you get past that, once you're able to say no, you can start coming out and voicing your opinions and seeing things in a more detached way, which is kind of your mission here. The next step in kind of the Scorpio transformation is like the eagle. So what eagles do when there's a storm coming is, unlike chickens who are down in the coop, who are famous for, pecking and killing each other during a storm because they're all freaking out, an eagle will literally rise above the clouds and just wait until the storm passes, hovering above the clouds. And then once it's done, land. And that's the lesson for Scorpio, is not to allow your emotional state to be to be in contact or be a sponge for other people's negativity. It's to rise above it. And then once you master that, you have a phoenix moment. And that phoenix moment is you die to self and you transform into this big, beautiful being. And in Vedic astrology, it's a Gandanta. My Ketu is also in Scorpio, and my Rahu is in Taurus. So I'm going through the same cycle as you, Karen. It's just in a different way. So I don't have a stellium, but yeah.
Well, it made sense to me about setting boundaries, which now, I'm in my 50s, my mid 50s, and just learning this now. And, I wish that I learned it earlier, but I needed to go through that process. And I think that understanding this really helps to explain so many things about me. And I really enjoyed it. And so I really hope that people reach out to you for that, just to help with just clarity in so many aspects of their lives. Alicia, do you have a question for Michelle?
I actually just want to make a comment, Karen, about the fact that Michelle came up with the same thing when you had your Akashic record read. It's kind of like the confirmation of you said exactly that, murder and the rape of the past lives. And it's just for the listeners right now, it's just like, Michelle did not know about that conversation at all. But Michelle, I think what's really interesting is when you can kind of explain more on the scientific side of this, because, so much of what, when we start diving deeper into the realms that are of the unknown, I guess maybe if you could just share like why that is your passion, is because of it being so science-based in the way that this modality is done, I guess.
That's a great question.
That is a wonderful question. Thank you. Well, I have a mathematical mind. I didn't really realize it until later when I started taking more advanced math classes, but astrology just made sense to me because I understood the charts, I understood the degrees, I understood the transits. I could see I could look at a person's chart and see exactly what was written down next to it and just connect the two. And I did have my Akashic records read by Deanne, and she said that I was a sorceress in places where they practiced heavily in astrology. So I've probably done this in a few past lives, which helps. I have a few samskaras as being an astrologer.
Just to interrupt and explain, Deanne does Akashic readings and her info will be on the site. Go ahead.
Yes, Rose Hope. Yeah, she's wonderful. I highly recommend her. And so I think it's a way to blend science with soul. It's a way to help people that may be a little more skeptical about it see the patterns. For instance, if you have a more scientific mind, and my Venus is in Virgo, which is very analytical, you tend to want to see it. And you can point to a chart and say, okay, here it is. And, you know, even in, you can point to a Vedic chart, you can point to a Western chart. For instance, Ptolemy wrote something called the Tetrabiblos, and he studied the fixed stars as they were analyzed by the Babylonians. And the reason why the Babylonians had such a great understanding of how the stars related to the human genome and society and culture and events is because they lived in a valley with no mountains around it. So they had a pure view of the night sky. So every time there was a new ruler or there was a major event or an earthquake or, you know, name it, they would look to the stars and make notes. And this lasted for thousands of years. So they had all this great material that Ptolemy then took and turned into the tetrabiblos. So when you see this fixed star on someone's east point or on someone's chiron or on someone's moon, etc., you can drill even deeper to that particular energy in their incarnation now. So it's a science in itself. So I tell people it's not like a mystical thing. The work's been done. We're just looking at the chart and imparting the knowledge.
Camille?
I love that this is all science and data based. And I just was recently talking to someone about the lack of images of women really being portrayed as scientists and so on. And there's like a new documentary coming out about what does a scientist look like. So I'm curious for yourself, like how do you suggest for other people that may be interested in going the path that you went and getting into astrology, how would you suggest they start? Where, because you're saying it's like math and science, so I'm wondering, what do they need to be good at to get started with this? Because charts, numbers, all of that, I'm like, yeah, you lost me with degrees.
It's a lot of geometry. So if you have a basic understanding of geometry, of degrees, of angles, that really helps. But I think the passion alone can really help with the understanding of it. For instance, if you talk to most scientists, male and female, of any creed, they will tell you, I got into this because I didn't have a choice. I wanted to get into this. And so the curiosity, and I think a lot of the blocks that especially girls have is there aren't a lot of role models until recently that are coming out of the woodwork through these films. They're like, oh yeah, by the way, NASA was run by a team of Black women. Thanks,
Yeah.
They didn't even get to use our bathrooms, but they were some of the best mathematicians in the world. So this stuff is still kind of coming out, and there weren't a lot of role models even in my generation of female scientists. And I grew up in a very misogynistic community where it was very difficult to feel safe learning, I guess is the way to put it. I know my experience isn't like everybody else's, but I think there's enough women out there to where they were told they were stupid, or they would never get it, or they just need to go have babies, or, fill in the blank. You're so pretty. Why are you working? That's still around, and it's so outdated and it's so toxic. And I hope that we're moving past that, but it's around. And I just want to let, any girl, any woman hearing this, that those voices that you're hearing in your head, if you're interested in this, they're not yours. they're your haters. And the reason they hated you is because they saw the potential in you. They saw that smart, beautiful woman who had all of this potential, and they tried to snuff it out. So don't let them do that. And don't be afraid of this. You know, it's not rocket science, but even though there are a lot of female rocket scientists, as we found out, but if you have a passion to do this, dive in. And, you know, if you have to take it slowly at first, then do that, and be gentle with yourself as you're doing it.
And what's nice, Camille, is when you have your chart read, Michelle explains things. Like I would say, you know, can you explain this? Can you explain that? But if you want to really know, you have to contact her and get it done, because then she'll go through. And I didn't just sit there and listen. I asked so many questions, and you took that extra hour with me to explain things. Because when you go on about this and this and this and this, I'm like, what do you mean it was highly predominant in this what does that sector mean? Like, I needed it explained like a one-on-one. Like, so that's what I really do like that about what you do, is there's no judgment. You just listen and you answer so that we understand, so that we can really use it to help us, which has been fantastic. You also, it's astrological tarot. So you also work with tarot. Can you explain that to us?
Well, I got into the tarot after I got into astrology, and I actually started really getting into it when I was going through my divorce, because my intuition was just gone. I mean, I came out of this abusive relationship, and when you leave, that is the most dangerous time for you. So I was in constant fear. You know, my ex was breaking into my house. He had weapons. It was just a mess. So I wasn't really thinking clearly. And so, you know, I had my Bible, I had the Gita, I had, you know, other texts that I was kind of relying on for spiritual support, but I needed something to help me with my day-to-day, to tell me what was going on. And so I got a deck, and I started basically every single day. Before I started the day, I would give myself a reading, and I did that every single day for 365 days. And I made notes, and I had a journal, and it really helped ground me, because I have an Aquarian mind, so I'm air. I need to kind of be brought back down to earth every now and then. And it really helped me kind of process what was going on a more practical level, especially legally, because I'd never been through the legal process before. And I didn't have any support in the legal process, like my ex did with his family and everything. So it was a way for me to get answers, because I didn't really trust my feelings at the time, because I was in such a heightened state of kind of fight or flight, if that makes any sense.
Oh yeah.
And I kept practicing, and that was in 2013. And now I give readings online. I actually just did a reading for someone yesterday, an email reading, and I just create reports for people based on what my cards are saying, what my oracle cards are saying, etc., to kind of help them through their process, because no one contacts an astrologer or a tarot reader because their life is rainbows and butterflies. They're suffering or they're struggling to understand something, or they're going through hell. And so I take that energy that I went through, and I go, okay, this is how they're feeling. Let me see how I can help, because I'm kind of like the middleman toward their own intuition. And everyone has it. Women have it, men have it, but at times stress and trauma can affect it. So I think that's why people rely on oracles. That's why they rely on tarot readers. That's why they rely on astrologers, because they could be in a place in their life where they just can't get past that block, and we can give them that needed push from the outside, or that encouragement that they need to get past it.
Are you able to pull a card for each one of us today?
Yes, and I have my karma cards. So these are the planets, the houses.
This will help demonstrate what you do. Do we have to ask you a question or a time frame, or?
You can ask any questions. These are created by who I call the celestial architect, Monte Farber. And I'm actually waiting for a Vedic deck. It's a gal named Claudia based out of Canada. Her name is Dharma_Malas, and she's on Instagram, and she's creating a Vedic deck. It's going to hit Kickstarter on April 7th.
Oh, that's great.
So I'm going to start giving those. Yeah, I'm going to start giving those readings once she creates that deck. I'm so excited for it.
Great. So Alicia, you go first. I don't know if you have a specific question.
Oh, I don't have a specific question. I'm just going to let Michelle say what she's supposed to say to me.
Okay.
Jeez. Okay.
While she's doing that, I just want the listeners to know Michelle is so incredible, and you absolutely want to have a reading with her. She actually gave confirmation about this experience that I had back in 2015, that she told me something that there's no way she would have known, and that was my sign. I was like, ooh, I need to, dive deeper in, and I'm so grateful to have the connection with you, Michelle. So I'm excited to see what this card says.
Okay, well, I got a pair for you. I pulled Aquarius, you can see there, and then I pulled Uranus, and Uranus rules Aquarius, and they also rule the 11th house together. The 11th house is finding your tribe, which you're doing. It's connecting with like-minded people. It's
the goddesses.
it's invention.
Yay.
Yes, Grateful Goddesses is part of that. It's also innovation. It's detachment. So learning to protect your boundaries as you put yourself out there, because I know you're a very psychic spirit and you can take that on. So putting those boundaries up, that detachment. It rules the Mudlahara, which I know is a block for you. So doing grounding exercises, really keeping yourself centered and here and present. And it also represents the Tower and the Star card. So it means going through what the Tower card are basically two people that are falling from a tower after it's been struck by lightning. It represents a very destructive time in our life. And the Star, which is part of this thing behind me, represents the aftermath of that and the beauty that can arise from the ashes, which is very much like Alicia's life. It's very inspiring. So going from that tower moment and into this star moment, which is also very Aquarian, you're finding your tribe and your voice, and you're telling people you're sharing your gift with the world, which is absolutely beautiful. Like, stuff comes out of her that's so Vedic. This is like 7,000 plus year knowledge. Some of these texts that I have, it's almost verbatim. It's amazing. So very Aquarian, very innovative, needed for this time too.
That helps validate for you, right, Alicia? So many things that you're doing and helps you to continue.
Yes, thank you so much.
How about Camille? Camille, you're up. What question do you have?
No, I'll follow Alicia's lead on that one. I'd rather just see what she pulls for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's very clear. Okay. Oh, I got the 9th house. That's excellent. Okay, so the 9th house is ruled by Jupiter. It represents Chiron, which is the wounded healer. And Chiron was a centaur, just in the mythology of it. And he was well known for going to foreign lands and finding cures and learning different religions and getting out there and just basically developing skills that he then brought home to share with his tribe. So for instance, different medicines and healing techniques, different religions, different ways of doing things. It represents long distance travel. So what I see for you is you are really molding the way that you see the world and your philosophies in a really big way. So you're not a small thinker. You want to think big. You really want to expand your knowledge into something that is cultured and refined and doesn't have any real blocks or cultural ties to it. It's just this big way of thinking and doing things. It also represents the guru, because what it allows you to do is to expand your thinking on a more global level than a local level, which is its opposite, Gemini. So that's yeah. So that's a really beautiful thing that you're doing. I don't know if that
Does that resonate with you, Camille?
Yeah, because I'm a military brat as well. So I grew up overseas in Turkey, Germany, and Holland. And so living in the South, that's a lot of the things that I want to change, is making sure we can kind of bridge those gaps, because like I'm joining all these different organizations with the idea that we become the melting pot in thinking and in working. So, and that's what I try to do with my podcast and working here with the Grateful Goddesses as well. So
Camille is such a
yes,
big thinker, and
confirmation.
both Camille and Alicia have opened my eyes to so many amazing things out there, and just I'm so grateful to
Likewise.
them. Okay, I guess I'll join the whatever question. What do you see for me?
Okay. I tell people when they ask general questions, it's like going to a restaurant and asking for food, but you guys are a little different because I know you. So.
Yes, should I have the shrimp or the chicken? I'm not sure. No. Let's see.
Okay.
I always like to see your reaction when you pull them, because your reaction's either
Okay.
like, oh yes, or oh.
Well, you got the South Node. So you're working through traumas. Your South Node is in a stellium with all of your Scorpion planets. Here's what the card looks like.
Okay.
It represents the tail of the snake. The head is, why we're here. The tail is past lives. So you're working through some past life traumas. You're doing a lot of shadow work, which is excellent.
What is shadow work? Just what I'm doing by speaking to you?
It's basically dealing with, it can be an internal process and it can also be an external process. Externally would be setting boundaries with toxic personalities. For instance, if someone is constantly tearing you down, you start sending some very clear messages and boundaries to that person so that you can respect your light and what you're giving to the world, because I know you're very empathic and very emotional. And on the other side of that, that would be if there's like any residual fears, anxieties, any depression lingering around, really diving deep into that and going, where is this coming from? And then addressing it. It could be from your childhood. It could be from a past life. It could be an anxiety from something that happened last week, but it's not ignoring or looking over those issues. It's facing them head on, looking them in the eye and saying, I'm going to deal with you. So.
No, that's true. And like I said earlier, I've been open to so many different types of readings that normally if I wasn't on this goddess journey, I would just, that's cute, that's fun, oh, that's interesting. But now I'm really getting deep and dirty, and I'm finding out things that I may not want to hear, but then I'm also learning that these are actionable steps that I'm taking to help my soul to grow, to reach that higher place. And whether, again, out there you believe in this or not, I'm not trying to force this dogma down your throat. It's just fun.
Up next, favorite things. Opening up to happiness and joy.
Welcome, everyone, to the favorite things portion with our guest, Michelle Marie. And this is our adult show and tell, where we share many things that bring us joy and happiness. And when I poured my tea this morning, which I'll share with you, it's one of my favorite teas, I will say that it has a little fortune or a little message on the tea bag here. It says, give happiness and you will end up happy, which is really cute because this tea makes me so happy. It's Egyptian licorice. It's warming and naturally spicy sweet. And what I like about the Yogi brand is it has, I'm not sure if you're familiar, it has these little messages on the back that explain. I'm not sure why I'm drawn to this tea. I like the flavor, but it says the great pharaohs of Egypt treasured licorice root for its natural sweetness, rich flavor, and soothing properties. So this is one of my favorite teas. You don't have to add any sweetener, and I just love how it makes me feel. Thank you for listening to that. And in fact, I believe, Michelle, you said, and I might be confusing with another reading, but that I am drawn to Egyptian things because I lived in that period. I had I think you said I had a very interesting life in that time period. So maybe that's why I like this Egyptian licorice. You never know. Alicia, what did you bring today?
A black stone. I don't know if it's black quartz or black tourmaline, but black tourmaline, I just have a little reading behind it. It's the chakras, the root chakra. It helps one become grounded. So there you go, Michelle. There's my grounding that I wear every single day. It shields from psychic negativity, helps with stress, and brings a feeling of security.
Where did you get that from? It's so pretty.
I actually got it on I found it on Etsy. It was actually this M and Flow Jewelry is who, so EMM and Flow Jewelry. And yeah, on Etsy, and it's sterling silver with pyrite and
What's the
black
second
tourmaline.
part? EMM and what?
Flow, FLOW.
Oh, I love that because I've been told too to wear that. And it's kind of like, how do I, wear these stones? Like put them in my bra, I guess, but it's pretty to have it in a bracelet.
Yeah.
That's a pretty one. Camille, what did you bring?
I'm actually wearing mine. I have allergies, and it's allergy season here in North Carolina. And I just got in these new pair of glasses. And of course, I had to, because when I was a kid, military glasses, I couldn't ever get them tinted. So there was like, when we moved to America, there was these glass stores, Pearl, I think they were called, and you could buy one, get one free, and you could get tinted lenses. And I got pink tinted lenses. So being old school and being able to get it again, I was like, oh, I'm totally getting it. So I'm blind as a bat without them, just to give you an idea. They are really medicated. It's not just for fashion. But I'm in love with them. My daughter likes them so much that she's even getting a pair. But I got these from iBuyDirect.com.
They're rose-colored glasses.
Mhm.
So you're
Very
looking.
Neptune.
I love that. You're looking through rose-colored glasses every day. I'm
And so
gonna.
I got another pair that's like for summertime. So now I can go swimming with them because that was my biggest excuse. I wear contact lenses. If I lose a lens,
Yeah.
I can't see to drive us home. And
Right.
it's happened before where we've gone boating and I've lost a lens. So I also ordered a sunglass pair. So this summer, all things available, we can go
Right.
to the beach or go on that boat and I can actually get in the water without fear.
Well, they look great on you, and
Thank you.
I love that you love them. You feel great in them, and that's the
Thank
whole
you.
point.
I did.
You do. You look fabulous.
Thank
And
you.
Michelle, what did you bring today?
I brought two things, if that's okay.
Of course.
Because I found
No,
something
only
recent that
one.
brought me.
No,
Okay.
there's many. The thing is, we're always sharing favorite things, so that's why we have one. But you can
Okay.
certainly share more than one.
Okay, so this is Shodasha Varga. It's the 16 divisional charts of Vedic astrology by Kamala Sutton, and she came out with this a couple of months ago, and I'm just addicted to it. It's such an amazing book. So it brings me a lot of joy in my practice, especially, and I'm taking classes from her right now, and she's just absolutely amazing. She's my Vedic astrology guru, and I love her so much. So she brings me a lot of joy. And then I recently bought the Kali Oracle by Alana Fairchild, and it's intense. We're living in what's called the Kali Yuga right now, and it's a very dark time. So light workers are needed, and a lot of the things that I noticed since starting this practice is a lot of women have been marginalized, abused, left homeless, struggle with poverty, things like that. And Kali is this incredible, take no BS warrior goddess that I do a reading and someone's just like, oh my gosh, that warrior energy is so amazing. And it's to instill bravery and courage and a lot of things that we're told not to be as girls. Kali just says, do it, so get it, so I love. Oh yeah. So whenever I actually just did a reading for someone who I had to make sure was safe, I mean, apparently especially with COVID, there's a lot of women coming out of the woodwork and talking to oracles. And I'm like, okay, first off, is he in the house? Are you safe? Etc. It's a real problem now that we're all indoors. And, once I make sure that, everything is okay, because it's like, you don't need an oracle reading, you need a police report, once I know that everything is okay, I'll do a Kali Oracle reading, and it's very healing and it's strengthening and it's amazing. So she's brought me a lot of joy. The messages from Alana through the Kali Oracle.
Is that the type of deck that if we were to get that and just pick a card each day, it can help to inspire women to be that strong warrior goddess?
Oh yeah, she's a warrior. Yeah, she's amazing. So if you're struggling with fear, anxiety, depression, not feeling as if you're enough, people who aren't respecting your boundaries, past abuse, childhood abuse and trauma, the Kali Oracle's for you.
Okay, that's great. And I, again, we're not telling you to go out and buy these things or,
No.
these rituals, but
I'm not making any money on this.
No,
in fact, I paid for this.
No, well, that's what I always tell. I tell all the featured guests and goddesses that everything they share is something that they really love. And it's not to promote or that they're getting any type of money for it. For, if you really do love it and it makes you happy, then share it. And, again, like as women, we want to share the things that bring us joy and happiness. Because if you hold it all to yourself, how are we all we're all connected, and how are we all going to find joy? So thank you for sharing your wisdom, your gifts, and your joy, and your beautiful smile. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.
Unleashed your inner goddess yet? Thanks for joining us today on Grateful Goddesses. We invite you to visit our website, www.gratefulgoddesses.com, to access today's show notes as well as other helpful resources. Don't forget to leave a review. Until next time, stay strong and empowered to be a grateful goddess.